tough when you're in PC. Life's rough when you depend on me to give you weapons and information for your journey, and still you still push in and try to hurt me. Life's tough when you're in PC. Life's rough.
So, we return to the world of professional wrestling, and the last time that we were here, we had a game called WWE Know Your Role, which was a lazily written game created by World Wrestling Entertainment at the height of the Open Gaming License hype back in 3.5. So, long story short, when it comes to that one, they just basically took 3.5 fight mechanics and incorporated to professional wrestlers, and it went over like a lead balloon, and now stands as a testament to the fact that you really need to balance your game idea with your dice mechanics, because if they're out of whack, it really ends poorly. WWE Know Your Role is the perfect example of that. However, it's not the only professional wrestling RPG out there. There's actually a cornucopia of these things laying around, and so today we're going to be spotlighting another one of those, and that one is called the Squared Circle RPG. Once again, keep in mind though, when it comes to RPG-style pro wrestling, there already exists something on the internet called e-wrestling. In e-wrestling, you go onto forums or chat websites and you roleplay out character promos and the story of that character. Then, at the end of a given time, usually at the end of a week, or every other week, or for a quote-unquote pay-per-view show, a game master sort of puts it all together in a sort of story and actually creates something that's akin to, like, WWE Raw or one of the pay-per-views. Typically, the person with the best RP is deemed the winner. Why do I bring this up? Because, as I stated in my previous video, e-wrestling is essentially the perfect way to roleplay professional wrestling. It allows for a multitude of characters, so you're not limited to 5 to 8 players at a table. You can have 20 to 30, similar to a LARP. It really focuses on creativity, and it really focuses on promos, as well as more of a narrative sense that you're creating, instead of focusing on mechanics and dice mechanics. It's really the perfect way to roleplay professional wrestling, to the point where a lot of these tabletop RPGs for pro wrestling, which incorporate dice mechanics into wrestling moves as well as wrestling matches, has a really hard uphill battle to fight. So whenever we're talking about tabletop RPG professional wrestling, you have to compare it to e-wrestling on the internet. Yes, it's not necessarily tabletop RPG, but considering the fact that it is such a perfect way to roleplay professional wrestling, it's really hard to justify taking it away from the forums on the internet and putting it at the table. So on the docket for today's episode is a game that comes to us from Daydreamer Interactive called the Squared Circle RPG. Complete with a cover that just screams early to mid-2000s, the Squared Circle RPG is more competent, yet still equally long-winded attempt to create a professional wrestling RPG compared to WWE Know Your Role. The game doesn't have a lot in the way of story or mythos, which is actually, I would say, a good thing. Whenever you want to actually cover something like professional wrestling, it's probably best to let the players create whatever world they want to create, and you simply facilitate either the mechanics or the basics of the world that the game is going to be set in. So it's a really good idea that they very much stay away from the idea of trying to incorporate very specific types of professional wrestling, and instead kind of leave it open for the people who want to play to create the world around them. However, it does go in the opposite direction, where instead of having no mythos and just a little bit of mechanics and whatnot to get players going, it keeps going and going and going into the realms of way too many mechanics. Classes themselves remain relatively light, luckily, with only about 5 to choose from: technical, brawler, high flyer, kind of sort of a mixed methods, and so forth. So, in that area, it's actually pretty good, with character creation being relatively simple. However, it is in a pretty bad degree of statting out not just match types, but individual move sets, to the point where there seems to be a little bit too many numbers going around. It's just something that should have been simplified, all things considered. Now, whenever it comes to professional wrestling, even one of the most famous promos of all time was Chris Jericho's 1001 Holds. Now, when it comes also to professional wrestling, there is way more than 1001 holds. There's more than 1001 moves. There are a lot, so to stat them all out is an extremely daunting task. And they very much show this by attempting to stat out certain moves in the similar vein of D&D statting out various spells that are found at the end of the player's handbook. This game certainly takes a have your cake and eat your cake and then eat the rest of the cake and everybody else's cakes method of adding stuff to the book. The PDF clocks in around 185 pages. However, considering what they wanted to do, they could have combined a lot of these moves in wrestling matches into easier mechanics and really saved in space and time, not just their time, but ours as well. I do actually really like the fact that it does incorporate show equipment and show mechanics so that you can actually really not just build your wrestler, but sort of build the company around everything with what you have, the funds you have, things like that. So I think that's a really good addition. However, whenever you combine it with the statted out wrestling moves, the level up system for character classes, the operative word for this game is bloated. Fortunately, I would also really like to add something positive in here about character creation and characters in general, but that one is also bloated as well, and this can be in addition to the fact that while the game isn't a D20 open license, it is definitely D&D 3.5 inspired, which means that it is a D20 system that is high on mechanics and dice rolls. For some very strange reason, they decided to add a level up system from sets of levels of 1 to level 10 to professional wrestlers, which I don't understand why, considering the idea of professional wrestling, considering just the ideas of underdogs and so on and so forth. To add a level up system, even one that is just very sort of simplistic as this one is, quickly takes away a lot of the role-playing and turns it into a combat simulator. Using a level up system needlessly creates level disadvantage for certain characters when wrestling is much more open to upsets and storytelling. However, instead of wrestlers tend to grow stronger with each level, leaving level 1s in the dust, which is generally how it should be whenever you have a level up system. But the point is not how a level 10 character should be able to easily handle a level 1 character, it is the fact that this mechanic shouldn't be in the game such as this. I really do want to say something nice about this game, considering the fact that there was clearly a lot of work and effort put into it. However, unfortunately the Squared Circle RPG gets a miss. It just is very over-bloated whenever it comes to a game, especially a professional wrestling game, where they overly statted out mechanics, matches, move sets, as well as a level-up system that just really doesn't incorporate sort of the basic idea of professional wrestling. So this is one that I unfortunately cannot recommend. Once again, I do recommend that if you are a huge fan of professional wrestling, go find an e-wrestling website out there. They're typically very happy to be getting in new people. So give those a try. And you know what? Maybe sometime down the line we can actually find a good professional wrestling RPG that I can recommend to everybody. Until then, have a good one. Thank you all so much for watching. Please like and subscribe for more.